Morning, it's September 25th, and this is to my liberal friends. I normally keep several gold bars and an additional $480,000 cash around the house just for incidental expenses, and I'm sure that all of you do that as well. Well, Senator Bob Menendez is in the news, and once again he's being charged with corruption and accepting bribes. He's been charged before, but a jury failed to convict him. And I wonder if some of them are having some second thoughts about that verdict now. Menendez has always had these questions surrounding him. I do want to mention that since Congress refuses to raise their salary, which has been set at $174,000 for the last 9 years without a raise, we have members who are independently wealthy and those that this is the best paying job they'll have. Think members like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and George Santos. That level of income makes living in D.C. and keeping a home in their district difficult if they don't have some other outside source of income. Hence the temptation which Bob Menendez has fallen into to get that outside source. Looking at someone like Robert Menendez, we have a man who has spent his life in government positions. He worked at the local level and eventually became the mayor of Union City, New Jersey. But he never made much money in those political jobs he held. But being a U.S. Senator, you are constantly being approached for help by people that do have a lot of money. And Bob Menendez was known to like expensive things. I know from personal experience that he liked expensive restaurants. Senator Menendez narrowly escaped that bribery charge 6 years ago, so it's hard to believe he'd tempt fate again. But there he was in the 39 pages of a federal indictment that prosecutors unveiled on Friday with details that included the gold bars, the envelopes of cash, and even a Mercedes-Benz for his wife. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York charged Mr. Menendez and his wife, Nadine, with conspiracy to commit bribery, honest service fraud, and extortion. These charges, they're a lot stronger than those prosecutors brought against the senator in 2015, but you always have to remember proving public corruption cases is difficult. The first indictment accused the senator of interceding for a physician friend in a Medicare dispute in return for campaign donations and some luxury trips. But campaign contributions and lobbying for constituents, they're intrinsic to representative government, and prosecutors failed to prove Mr. Menendez took, quote, an official act. The trial resulted in a hung jury. The current indictment says Mr. Menendez, in his position as a top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, urged his colleagues to support military aid to Egypt. In return, Egyptian officials allegedly granted his wife's friend, Wael Hana, an exclusive monopoly on certification of halal-compliant U.S. food exports to Egypt. This deal was worth millions to the Hana family, so you can understand why they might have offered an incentive to Menendez to ensure they got that sweetheart deal. Well, I'm going to tell you, Senator Menendez is going to have a difficult time explaining why he had 2 gold bars along with that huge stash of cash in his home. According to prosecutor, Mr. Hana purchased those gold bars and trace of his DNA on both the gold bars and the cash. In addition, it has been revealed that Senator Menendez set up a business entity, Strategic International Business Consultants, LLC, to facilitate the payment of the bribes. Where have we heard about someone setting up a bunch of LLCs to receive money before? Just thinking. The calls for his resignation are coming in and will only grow. The governor of New Jersey has said he should resign. The chairman of the state Democratic Party has said he has to go. Congressman Bill Pascrell Jr., one of the state's most senior members, has said he should resign, and he's backed up by several other members of the New Jersey delegation. Andy Kim has said he should resign, and he's also announced he intends to run against him in a primary if he's not out of office. These are all Democrats, and I suspect that in the coming weeks, Senator Menendez might be forced to step aside, but I also know I would be surprised, knowing the senator, that he refuses and think he can gut things out. He's already had to step aside as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but Bob Menendez has grown used to the power and privilege of being a U.S. Senator, and he's not going to give that up easily. And there's another issue that Menendez has to consider. To this point in time, no member of Congress has ever had his pension stripped away, but that's certainly a possibility. We're talking about a significant pension because of his longevity. Menendez has been in Congress for 30 years, and that means he would be eligible for a pension of about $70,000 per year. And that pension also has a COLA attached to it, so it grows each year. Well, Bob Menendez has already played the race card, claiming his political enemies are targeting him, and offered this statement by his son, Robert Menendez Jr., who's also a member of the New Jersey delegation, and who many understood hoped to assume his father's seat in the Senate at some point. And he said, quote, And it must also be said that in my life, I have seen countless detractors who refuse to believe a son of immigrants from Hudson County could rise to be one of 100, and yet he's constantly proven them wrong. And thankfully, those who know him and what he has stood for his entire career outnumber the naysayers. Well, that's just baloney. But here's the solution. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer should show some real courage and sit down with Senator Menendez and tell him that he intends to offer a resolution to expel him. Now, to pass such a resolution would require 67 votes, but I believe they're there because who's going to run the political risk of voting against such a resolution? Give him 3 to 4 days to resign or bring the vote forward. In the end, that move will either force the resignation or force the Senate to expel him. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you appreciate the podcast, hit the subscribe button and recommend it to your friends. If you have a comment, please leave it.